I choose to get money, I'm stuck to this bread. Everybody got choices. These bitches and I'm all in their head. Everybody got choices. Keep it 1,000, I done like that I choose. Everybody got choices. These bitches be hating, I already know, but I never.
This is the clean version. Don't look at me like that. It's the clean version.
I can say I don't know that song.
We gotta give you some funds and get you the non-explicit version of all songs.
Well, you know we don't own the rights to this music, so right now it's all about choices. You know we have an episode on school choice today, so I thought little choices might come in handy. We're talking about choices.
We're talking about choices. We're talking about choices. Welcome, 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 welcome to another episode of Vulnerable Voices. We have two special guests today because we're talking about a hot topic in education, school choice. School choice. I know that rustles some feathers every now and again, but we're going to have this conversation. We're going to have this dialogue, and we ask that you watch us live, like us, follow us. But more importantly, we want you to ask questions. We want you to get engaged in the conversation today. But before we get started and introduce our special guest, I'm going to start with my intro. So listen, I posted a comment the other day because this was just heavy on my mind, going through some things, learning, growing, right? So I was thinking about a tree and its natural growth process. And what I know to be true is that a tree cannot grow without shedding some leaves. And I said that to a friend of mine, and she paused for a minute and she said, you know, that's really impactful. That really means something. And so I wanted to share that with each of you today. A tree cannot grow without shedding some leaves. So my question to you is, if you're not growing, you might want to check to see if you're hanging onto some leaves that you might need to get rid of. I don't know, maybe that's a person in your life. Maybe that's a particular job that you're in. Maybe you want to do something great, but you're afraid to grow because you got to let go of some things. So again, grow like a tree and shed some of those dead leaves because it's the natural way. It's in God's plan. That's my intro for today. Again, welcome to Vulnerable Voices. We are live on season 3. And now we would like to introduce two of our guests. We have Miss East, who is a former superintendent, principal, all things in education. She had her own charter for a while, and so we're going to let her talk about herself. And then we also have Dr. Torrin Woolridge, and he is a current principal, super principal. That's what I call him, the rock star. He is the man. And so he's going to give us his opinion on school choice, and we're going to just have an honest dialogue this afternoon. So, Miss East, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we want you to pass the mic.
Okay. Well, my name is Yvette East. I currently work at, I believe it's the second largest charter management organization in the state of Texas, the last time I checked. And I have the opportunity to work with schools focused on school turnaround. And that is what I've always done. I've always worked at Title I schools. I was principal at Title I school, was superintendent, had my own charter, and that was all Title I. And we had 99.9% equal dis. You know, so it was all Title I. So I have a lot of experience in making a difference in people's lives, but you have to listen. You have to listen to their stories and meet them where they are and create a culture, not just for the school, but for the whole community to grow. And once you get that buy-in, you'll see the change. So I'm going to pass that on to Dr. Woodridge.
Hello, my name is Teron Woodridge. I'm in my 16th year of education. I started my career as a special ed teacher. So behavior self-contained. I had students that were ED and, those little boys and girls who no one really wanted to teach. So as I started my career, I noticed that they needed people to advocate for them. So with that being said, I was blessed enough to become a principal in a low performance school, became a turnaround principal. And then from that point on, I've just been going to different schools, putting in systems and just helping the community and kids. So I'm currently right now a campus director with the Burnett Public School System. I'm actually servicing a campus that is F-rated. So we're putting in some great systems and we're just making sure that the little boys and girls on the northeast side of Houston get what they need. So I'm happy to be here. So thank you guys for having me.
No, thank you. Thank you both for being here. So Dr. Woolridge, did I hear correctly that you're in a traditional public school right now?
So actually, I'm in a public charter, and this is my second year in a public charter. So out of my 16 years, I've spent the last 14 years in a traditional ISD or public school setting. So I kind of went to the public school route, and now I'm in a charter.
Right.
Charter school.
And so, Yvette, I know you explained that you're in the charter school network as well. Were you in the public school network at all?
Oh, yes. I started out in HISD, which is, everybody knows HISD was the fourth largest school district in the U.S. But I started out at a time where things were different. But I was taught by the best. I was taught by a man named Dr. Thaddeus Lott. And eventually, Dr. Lott actually started the first in-house charter with HISD in the Acres Home Network, which we call the 4-4. Well, they call 4-4, but I'm saying 4-4, so you know what I'm talking about.
real, loving it.
And we turned the lives of children, basically children of color that were really, really suffering, really, really struggling. And they were doing so well because we changed the culture and of learning. And once we changed that culture of learning, our children were so successful. And so much so that I believe it was year 1990, let me see, can't remember, 1998, something around there. They took I think it was the TOS test then. And our kids were off the radar. So much so that TEA came down and made our students take the TOS test again with them present. And they did better than the first round.
That's good.
No, that's good. Now hold on. I got to pause for a minute. Now, brother, if you don't take that tie off, we got to come out the tie. Take it off. Take it off, man. Take the tie off, man. Come on.
This is what it is, man. So
the day's over with.
It's actually unique. And
we're over here chilling. The day's over with, man. We want you to relax a little bit.
Let me make a point. So my first principalship was at Bastion, and I was in Houston as well. So
you know what I'm talking about.
Right. So I'm off of Jutland, right? So you're talking about Southeast Houston. So every single day I wear a shirt and tie because my young boys and girls need to see people who look like us in shirts and ties.
I agree.
And that's
what you don't see.
Right.
I agree. It's hot now, but it's after hours, man. Take the tie off, man. It's after hours. We're sweating over there.
And so to follow it up, so about after my first year, I noticed that the little boys were wearing suspenders. So one of my teachers came to me and said, Mr. Wood, do you know that the young men are wearing suspenders and they want to wear ties because you wear a tie and you wear suspenders? So with that being said, I mean, hey, this is what you're going to get today. You're going to get a shirt and tie. You might get it again next time you see me, brother. So
hold on. I'm going to go get a tie out the closet, y'all. I think I'm going to be right back.
Hey, that's what it is. See, that's motivation. See,
there you go. There you go.
The difference between New York and that hospitality in the South.
Hey, y'all go ahead and be hot. It's after hours. I'm relaxing.
Sacrifices you make for children. That's the big brain.
That's true.
So all right. So before we even get to the dialogue, I got to ask y'all about crazy behind Texas, because Texas. Recently, I read something where Texas said that they they're passed or trying to pass a bill that you cannot teach any type of cultural anything cultural. So you can't talk about anything cultural. You can't teach history. You can't teach the right history. You what's going on with Texas? I like Texas, and I even consider moving to Texas one day, but I can't move there if we can't teach the babies what they really need to know. Like what's going on with Texas? Y'all got to speak up for your state, because that would never fly in New York.
Oh yeah, different. I'm gonna let our guests chime in on this one.
There is a different culture in Texas. You know that.
What's the different culture? Say what it is. Stop being politically correct. There's a different culture in Texas.
There is a different culture.
What does that mean?
Texas.
I don't know what that means.
Well, I'm going to explain it to you.
Okay, go ahead. Because I want to hear you say it. Stop beating around the bush. I want you to say what it is.
I'm gonna give you some history about Texas.
Okay,
you realize that Texas was its own country at one time.
I know y'all pledged allegiance to the Texas flag.
Okay, but it was really originally it was its own country before it became a state. So Texas do things on the way that Texans do things. There is a belief in the Texas way based on the culture, when you talk about San Antonio and Jim Bowie and all of them being there fighting for Texas. And then as we are looking at this, you got the Daughters of Confederation here. You have all types of historical associations that defend the way history is taught in the state of Texas. Now, the fight is to identify what is true and what is not, instead of keeping to what the fable. And so that is the fight.
When you gonna say that's some racist BS and stop being around the bush because you don't want the white man at your job to tell you was wrong? Girl, you better go ahead and say that's some nonsense.
I'm just saying.
Put that head back into it. Come on.
I'm a transplant here. I'm originally from Baltimore, Maryland, which is a whole different story.
You from Maryland?
Baltimore. I'm from Bmore.
Okay. She got a knife. She got a knife in her coat pocket. Then I better leave her alone.
You better know it. So you need to understand that the culture is totally different here. And so when you have been raised and you have generations of people, especially the Daughters of Confederacy, they are going to fight tooth and nail to protect what they believe in, just like we're going to fight what we believe in. But that is the issue. If we come to the polls and start voting, not just on the presidential year, but in the interim years, we can turn things around. But that's not what we do. And that affects us across the board in Texas.
Brother Wood, what you think about your home state and their shenanigans?
So my thought is that I'm an educator. So with that being said, my goal is to teach kids. And so with that being said, you have a certain culture. And my goal is to make sure that kids know about their culture. They know where they come from. They know what makes them them. And then we make it an educational experience. So, I mean, there are a lot of things that we're not supposed to talk about in school, i.e. religion, things like that. But that doesn't mean that the kids still don't talk about it. It's just certain ways of how you can address it. And so, I mean, I let the politicians stick to politics, and I stick to teaching kids and making sure that they can graduate and they can advocate and they can make changes in their community once they get that certain position, because that's what certain, laws are put in place to keep kids and people from doing. So you want to empower them. So that's my goal. So that's how I feel about that.
Mm-hmm.
Good. I'm still waiting for somebody to say, I'm going to say what I want to say and teach them what I want to teach regardless of the law. That's what I'm ready at. I'm ready for y'all to pull the guns out blazing.
Okay, Dr. Miller, this is what I need to tell you, that
Yes, ma'am.
the appropriate way to teach history is for scholars to see themselves within the historical timeline. So it's up to you as an educator to identify and make those connections on where this student is, where this scholar is, what they know, and track back. This is what happened, this, and this builds upon this, and this builds upon that, and this is where you are. You get the scholar to start thinking, and they will go back and tell their parent.
Absolutely.
And then their parents will go back and tell the community. But you have to teach history in a way. This is historical. This has repeated itself.
Right.
There's a lot of power that educators have that they don't realize that they have. When you are in your classroom, and I used to tell my teachers this all the time, when you're in your classroom, that's your house. And it's your responsibility for the success of every child in that room. And success in our culture and education is more than just passing a test. Success is knowing who you are and being able to use those tools to impact or transform and change your community or your current circumstance, right? So whether you agree with CRT, critical race theory, or not, whether you believe Black history should be taught in schools or not, there are core fundamental things that children of color have to know in order to even know who they are. And so whether, they pass a bill, they do not, at the end of the day, especially educators of color, we have a responsibility, but even bigger than that, I truly fundamentally believe that we have a right to share the experiences with our children. Because if we don't, then who will? And I just refuse to put them at a disadvantage. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. Right. I used to tell my scholars, I would say it's my babies, but my scholars.
My babies.
I say, history is his story. They would say, Mrs., who is his story? I said, look up the publisher and tell me who he is.
Everything is a teachable moment.
No, yes. that makes a lot of sense.
So, let me ask you guys this, because both of you were in the traditional public school setting. I was in the traditional public school setting for, 13, 14 years. Paul, I know you were in public. So we've all had that experience. And now we're all here in these schools of choice. So tell me, why did you leave the traditional world to come to a charter or a school of choice?
For me, it's because we were leaving too many students behind. You have all this bureaucracy, all of this red tape, all of these things about what you can't do, what you can do, what you can do. And I want to know, what are you going to allow me to do? So I worked in charters because I was able to make a difference, to close those gaps without all that bureaucracy, waiting a year or 2 years to change a curriculum or change the way we assess or just a number of things that we do, that I had the ability to make a difference, to do home visits, to be with the parents, to find out what their needs are, to work with them, to help them work with their students, to help the students work with their parents so everybody could grow. And in a traditional setting, I saw some of that, but they could, depending upon the school you're in, depending upon the leader that you have across the board, we left too many, as Dr. Johnson would say, too many pieces of candy on the table. And those babies are too sweet to leave behind.
What about you, Dr. Woolridge? You know, what made
I
you?
think for me it was curiosity. I had spent several years in different districts. Actually, this is probably my 6th district in the last 8 years. So, I mean, I had never worked in charter, and I mean, I had an opportunity. So I just said, well, let me see what it's about. So, I mean, I think that I always tell my staff, and I always tell people that I come across, every realm has its different way of doing things. So, each environment has certain things that make them unique. They have certain things that may be different from another environment. So, I mean, it's to me, I mean, if you're an educator and if you can impact and if you can make change, it doesn't matter if you're in an ISD or a charter, you're going to go and you're going to do what's best for kids and you're going to make impact wherever you go. So for me, it was more so just coming to a different environment and then putting in systems and seeing if what I did in the ISD actually worked where I am now. So, I mean, that was kind of my motivation for it.
No, I think I know for me, it also that just you got tired of the same recycled things happening over and over again, not being able to do anything about it, not being able to change. Today, I had a meeting with one of the local colleges where I went to the college campus, and they said, "Hey, we want to partner with you. We want to partner with your school, and we want this to happen, and we want to offer you these." And they said, "We brought this to the public school, your neighbors down the street, but they couldn't do it because of the bureaucracy, and we're just tired of it." And I said, "No, well, as long as it's not in the way of doing anything that's wrong to kids, or as long as there's nothing and there's no cost to this to us either," I said, "Why would I say no? Why would there be any red tape? Like, let's get it." And it's bringing like a real college partnership, an additional one to the school that's going to bring resources for our kids. So just the opportunity to do things that quickly, I have to agree with both of y'all. So, but why do y'all think that there's so many people who are against school choice? Like, let's dig into that a little bit. Like, because I know y'all probably still have some friends who work in the district, whether they're teachers or administrators, and I'm sure y'all hear some proponents of it. What are they saying?
I just think I'll speak on that first. It's ignorance. It's ignorance. I remember when I ran my charter, they told me I was picking the kids. I was taking kids from their, I was taking all the good kids from their campuses. I said, no, we serve all the students that walk through our door. And when those lies go out like that, they just pick the good ones, or they don't serve special ed, or those type of issues, or they are not legitimate. They're really giving answers to the test. You hear all kinds of things, and they'll say things like, if you taking dollars from us. And I'm thinking, no, we're not taking any dollars from you all, because we get paid less per child than the traditional ISD, because we don't get those tax revenues, but it's that ignorance factor. And I'm like, where do you think the children are coming from? Where are the scholars coming from? These are typically students that go to charters, are students that are not successful in the traditional ISD. And the parents are looking for a place where they can place their student to excel. So we're not picking students. Students are coming to us. Parents are coming to us as a choice. And so I think there's a little ignorance there. You have people talking about they're taking money from the school district, they taking all the good kids, all of that. It has nothing. It's just pure ignorance. Or big business owns all charters and they're making a profit, and you shouldn't make a profit off of education. I hear that too. And it's kind of, it does something to me. It's kind of sickening, because I worked on a board for the state of Texas. I'm not going to mention their name in case they
mention the names. Go ahead, say it. I'm not going to mention their names. Say it. Go ahead. Come on now. Say it.
I was on the regional board. I was on the state board, and these people came against charters heavily this year. I mean, these bills were directed. We don't want charters to expand. We don't, and I brought charters into that association. I was the first charter to be a part of that association. And this association is over 100 years old.
It's big.
And once I brought those charters in, and now they are they're aligning themselves with other associations and saying we are against this bill, we are against that bill, to the point that I can't be a part of it because you're fighting against me and what I believe in. Every parent should have a choice for their child to do better, to grow. So I just think it's total ignorance. You know, it's like that that mindset, you know, with the dogs. You have one dog who's the alpha dog, and he brings on it, and they don't even know what they are up against. They just all get in, yeah, we against it, and don't even know what they're against.
A group thing.
Not knowing that you are threatening the success of a scholar.
What you think, Pastor Woolrich? With the pastor, what do you think, Reverend? Come on, give it to us, Reverend.
Honestly, I just think it's perception, and I'm not gonna lie. When I was a principal in Houston, I thought the same things. Man, these kids show up on my doorstep right after snapshot. These charters kicked them out, you know. But you know, it's perception. So I mean, once I've actually worked in the charter, I mean, the kids that we have, I mean, they have needs. So I mean, I just feel like, I mean, there are enough kids out here everywhere for their parents to choose what's best for them. So if a kid wants to go to a charter, that's fine. If a kid wants to go to a ISD, when I was in Houston, there were certain things about Magnet and things like that. So regardless of the organization, regardless of whatever discussion, you're going to always have opposing views. You just have to make sure that whatever work you're doing is benefiting the kids, because ultimately that parent that comes into my office with that kid, with whatever need they have, I have to make sure I'm addressing. And it doesn't matter if I'm in an ISD or if I'm in a charter. I'm not going to bash ISDs. I'm not going to bash charters. Like I said before, every Rome has their way of doing things. So it is what it is. So, I mean, we're not going to stop educating kids. Right. You know, I went to Texas A&M. We didn't like UT, but at the end of the day, they're both colleges and they're both educating kids. Now, we may talk bad about UT, but if I have an applicant coming in from UT for a job, I'm going to hire them if they're better than that applicant from A&M. It just is what it is. So that's how I feel about school choice and about just educating kids and just the whole perception of it. So it's all good.
But also, you know, charters the research shows that charters have shown excellent gains in dealing with students that are economically disadvantaged, that are ELL, as far as growth. And so there is they feel kind of threatened in a way. So it's that fact that let's just shut that down and we can just move forward.
And that's the thing, right? So my thing is, I'm for good schools. I don't care if it's a private school, if it's a charter school, if it's a public school. I'm for good schools. You got good and bad in both, right? Mm-hmm. So anyone that says that charters 100% are rocking it, that ain't true. Just like ISDs, they're not 100% rocking it. So I think the bigger issue is to understand that people come with a different perspective and a different narrative. But the reality is our job and our focus should be solely on what is the best option for that particular family. And it saddens me to have these conversations and argue about if choice should even be an issue in an education when that's the only choice parents we're trying to take away, right? Like you can choose what food, you can choose what bread, you can choose what college you want to go to, you can choose what car you want to drive, you can choose how you want to raise your children. but we don't want to give parents a choice, especially, and we know and understand, right? Your zip code determines a whole lot. And if I'm forced to go to a school that's not a good fit for me, shouldn't I have a choice? I can't wrap my head around that. I don't understand why we are so against people being empowered to make a decision and an investment to what's best for their future and their particular family and the needs of their child. I don't get it.
And another thing that they do, the media does, but they have help, is to publicize the failing charters. And when you publicize the failing charters, or you hear on the news, somebody ran off with this money, or you did this, or they did that. But that's only we
but
serve
in the ISD too.
Right, but
right. It happens in ISD too.
Yeah, that's education. That's big.
But it's like, oh, charters do that. No, it happens across the board. Look how long we had to deal with North Forest ISD.
See, but where I agree with you on that is, some of the differences, even though they publicize that, what people don't realize is, so I know in New York State and I say Massachusetts have some of the highest accountability in the country for charter schools, and not to say other states don't, but I just know that we have some of the highest accountability measures that we have to meet. And so we have to meet the state's accountability. And then, so there's in New York State, there's two governing bodies, right? So it's either the SED, that's the State Education Department, or SUNY, the SUNY State University of New York, right? So you're governed by one of those two bodies. And so, for example, my school is governed by SUNY. Now, SUNY has a plan for us that is, in some cases, almost double what the state says you can meet or not meet. So, for example, to pass a test in New York State, a Regents exam, if you get a 65, you're passing. So, and when you're a SUNY school, the accountability is you have to meet the state, obviously, but I have to have 80%. I have to have 60%, 65% of my kids get an 80 or better on a math exam, where a traditional public school can just, if they receive a 65, that's passing. And so if I don't meet those measures, then I'm not able to stay open after a while. And so they will close your behind down in a second, to where many traditional public schools will be able to stay open for long periods of time and failing. I know there's some district schools in my local area here that have been failing for 12, 13 years, maybe longer, and nothing has happened. And so I'm not anti-public. I'm not even pro-charter. I'm pro-good school as well. Mm-hmm. And so I say all that to say, like, I think a lot of people don't understand the accountability that comes with it. And I think some of it is because there are certain states, if I'm going to advocate and hear what some of the proponents are saying, is there are certain states that don't have the accountability that they need. And usually, and somebody's pastor wants to go open a school, and they got a good idea, but they don't know how to work the school to fidelity. And then the school falls apart and gives a bad name for the charters. So, what do y'all think about that? What happens when these schools open and they're not right?
Well, for the state of Texas, we have similar guidelines. If you have a charter and the law says if you fail your financial audit or you don't meet your accountability standard, which is our same accountability standard, is the same for the state of Texas across the board. Either it could be financial or academic accountability, either or. For 3 years, they're closing you down. So you have to meet finance and accountability, or if you met your academic accountability and did not meet your financial, then you got 2 more strikes, right? And that's it, and you're gone. But that's not with the traditional public schools, because we've seen traditional public schools go a long time and not be shut down. So it's a real fight, and especially when you start up
Right.
Those resources need to be there. You got to have those finances intact. And once that accountability starts, it has to be on tack, or you will be closed down. You might open it up 1 year, and then 4 years later, you gone.
So, Dr. Woolridge, when you came from the traditional public, you're in the charter now. You've been in the charter for about 2 years, I think you said, right? So now I know you have a deep network of colleagues, and when you see your colleagues not performing, and so one of the biggest issues that I see, even with people who are often anti-school choice and their schools aren't performing, they don't necessarily want to take advice from other people either. How do you talk to your colleagues? How do you deal with them when you see that their school is not doing well? And so what I hear from Dr. Erica is that you are a rock star, so your school must be performing well. So how do you work with that? What are your back conversations like? Forget this political stuff. Let me hear your real conversation with him. What you saying to your man?
I mean, my first
in the Texas accent too. Say it in the main. Come on, say something from Texas.
My first year, I'm not gonna lie to you. My first year as a principal, a turnaround principal, it was horrendous. I mean, it was hard. I was trial by fire. So there were a group of us who went through all the experiences together. So, we all started out in Houston, but each person may have branched off to a different district. So I still have that same network of colleagues that it's kind of like a fraternity, a sorority. You've all been through the fire, you've been hazed together. So it doesn't matter if you are in a charter or if you're in ISD, you collaborate and you talk. Now I've had some conversations with people, like I said before, who don't understand charter. And it's not my goal to persuade them or to get them to like charter. It's my goal to let them know that we're doing work in a charter and we're helping kids. Just like if I came to a district, I would do the same work. It may look different depending on the systems that I have to put in place or the structures, but I mean, the goal is always to help kids. So the conversations are, it's enlightening because we'll talk about certain things that may happen or different things that I've learned in charter that I try to teach my fellow colleagues or my fellow friends. And they say, oh man, that's different. That's different. You know what I'm saying? Or just like I have some friends that have gone from big districts to small districts. And they say, well, in my district, we do this. And I'm like, well, when I was in Houston, we did this. And it's just enlightening. I mean, you educate them and you just kind of swap ideas. And I mean, you take certain ideas, you implement them and vice versa. So, I mean, I don't really have anybody who just really just anti. I just talked to a good friend of mine today that was in an ISD, and they just got a promotion to a charter in a director role. So it's just one of those things where it's just, and we celebrate each other. So, I mean, we just had those talks, and I mean, it is what it is. I mean, if they don't like it, I mean, maybe they shouldn't be in my friend network, but Love
it. Can we stay right there? I just want to ask you another question. So because you started in an ISD, just as all of us, do you think you would have the foundation, the experience, let's call it what it is, be as good as you are if you had not started or didn't have that background in the ISD, if the roles were reversed?
That's a good question.
So
questions are good. What?
It's been a while.
So, and we laugh and joke about it. And with some of my friends who started out, like I said, that first year was horrendous. And we always say that, Houston was probably the greatest training ground that we could ever have because we experienced so much in a decentralized district that you were like the CEO of your campus. And it's like when you go to different settings and different, organizations that may not allow as much autonomy, then, you can kind of rein it back if you need to, or if you need to give insights, you can. So absolutely not. If I had probably have started out in a different setting, then I probably wouldn't have the skill set. But like I said, I've been to 6 different districts in the last 8 years. So each place I picked up something different and I use that environment as a learning experience. I'm pretty sure there are things in this organization I'm in now that, I didn't know until I got there. So I just used it as a learning experience. But what I deal with in Houston in the last 8 years, I think has prepared me to go to various environments. But if I would have done it backwards, I'm pretty sure going from a charter to what I experienced in Houston, my first year, and not saying it was bad, but it was just learning. I was a first year principal of an F-rated campus, the second lowest campus in the district. That was hard work and just having to build culture and things like that. So yeah, it was difficult. I don't know if I would have survived vice versa.
See, I definitely agree with that. It was a training ground for me. See, that I spent 12 years in the traditional public school district in several different schools, and it was definitely a training ground on all levels, from teaching to administrator, and even as a student, and going through that same district as a student. And I'm grateful for that opportunity to learn the good, the bad, and the ugly. So, and there's so many good things about traditional public schools, and there's wonderful educators. So I don't want to, I just don't want this to turn into a session where anybody thinks that we're saying that good isn't happening, because there's amazing things that are happening daily in a traditional public school. I think what we're all saying is we just need a choice. How about you, Yvette? Did you would you say the same or different?
I definitely would say the same. Starting out into traditional ISD, I think that was my third career. I don't know.
What was your first two? What was your first two careers? Tell us. Talk to us. I hope she's gonna tell us something good too, like she was worked at Magic City or something. Come on,
no, nothing like that. Social work, hospitality, but it all, it all works together. But it was hard. It was hard because it was different. And even as a classroom teacher, they didn't do things the way we do things now. When you first started out as a teacher, think back, and you started ISD, you got everybody's students, scholars, who were a challenge. All the teachers, they made their list. I don't know how old y'all are. They made their list, and all the new teachers got the challenges. And it was a challenge, but they don't do that anymore because they know better. But that's the way they used to do it. So either you were going to sink or you were going to swim.
Absolutely.
So yes, most definitely that ISD experience was something that changed my world.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with 12, 13 years in the ISD. If I wouldn't have had that, there's no way.
Yeah.
I think I would be where I am in my educational career. So I'm grateful to my experience in Dallas ISD. I graduated, from Dallas, and I taught there and went up the ranks, and it had to happen.
Did you ride the little bus to school?
Actually, I did ride the short bus. Let me tell you.
I knew it. I knew it.
Watch this. Because I went to a school of choice in the district, it was a magnet. So pick this. And everybody doesn't know my background, but my mother, my mother didn't graduate from high school. She doesn't have a high school diploma. But with that, her thing was education is important. You gotta go to school, yada, yada, yada. So that was my thing. What do you want to be? What do you want to be? That was drilled into me. So the counselor comes into the classroom, when you're in 6th grade. That's when 6th grade was in elementary, right? And she has this big spiel about what's the plan for middle school. And she passes out these forms, and they were applications to go to a magnet school. And so she was saying, we'll take them home and I'll never forget. I sat there in class while that woman was talking and filled out my application. I don't remember if I signed my mama's name or not. I don't know.
You did.
But I filled out that application.
I hope she whoop you now. I hope you get a whooping when you get home. I hope you get a whooping.
That part. Turned it in, the next day or whatever. And I got accepted to Atwell. It's a school in Dallas, and it was a life-changing experience, but it was all the way across town. And there were only a handful of us that were from my neighborhood that got accepted and went to the school across town. So yeah, Paul, I rode the short bus because I was a part of special education, just the talented and gifted side.
Well, you're still special in my book. And talented and gifted. But as we kind of come to a close here, I want to take time to thank Dr. Woolridge and Ms. East for joining us tonight to talk about this topic. And I know a lot of people have different opinions and perspectives on school choice. And for me, school choice comes down to often dollars and cents for people, and you think about it when there's an affluent or even a middle-class family. Most middle-class families usually judge where they're going to live by the schools that are in the district, right? So they usually buy a house based off of what school and how well the school does. So that's a choice. Because they have enough money, they're able to make that choice and move to a district that they're comfortable with. Now, let's say they happen to live in a district and the performance isn't good. Most of those people have the ability to send their kids to a school and pay for it. Now, we subtract the ability to pay for it, and we have many urban neighborhoods where many of our Black and brown residents can't afford to pay to send their kid to private school or can't afford to move to the neighborhood of choice. So they are stuck with the schools that are in that area. And if those schools aren't performing, they don't have a choice. They have to send their kids to that school. So it comes down to money. So the reason why school choice is so important, because it gives an option. It doesn't mean that it's the best option for all or that's the only option. It just provides an option. And so that option gives an opportunity for kids to do something differently, because there might be a connection there with that campus and with that school and with that opportunity to do something differently. And so that's a real reason why there should be school choice, because it provides an opportunity. The other thing that I think is really important to think about is often people who are proponents are because of dollars and cents. And it comes down to a bottom line. Like I believe Ms. East said earlier, it takes away from, certain things, or it takes away from our school district. And honestly, it doesn't take away anything, because the money follows the child, and the child's in another seat. The child being in that seat, the money goes with the child. So you're saying it takes away from the organization, but it shouldn't go to the child? That doesn't necessarily make any sense to me in my little brain of logic. But with that being said, I think it's crucial to understand that there should be a choice, because the child is the most important thing. That money deserves to go to that child, because that's what it's there for. And if that district was doing it right, there wouldn't need to be a choice. That choice would be the school that is good. So again, I just encourage our listeners to be pro-choice, to be an opportunity, not pro-charter or not pro-public school, but pro-choice, and give the child the best opportunity to learn, grow, and do things in the way that they need. Now, next week, we're going to be coming back at you. I believe myself and Dr. EJA will be in the same location at the same time, so it should be interesting. We're going to discuss, I believe we're going to do some activism, some social justice, and some other things that should be interesting next week. So we want everybody to tune in at 7:30. Again, want to thank our guests, and we appreciate you all for being here tonight. We'll see you next week at the same time, same location on YouTube and Facebook. And please keep on coming. Like, subscribe, share, do all that good stuff. And we'll keep coming at you with content. So until next week, y'all have a great week. Peace.
Peace.